A massive tax reform bill is dead on Capitol Hill. Big news yesterday. Public pressure really killed it. The House was set to vote on this yesterday. Then the governor announced that they were going to hit the brakes. The bill was a major rewrite of the tax code, most notably sales tax. I'm joined now by former state representative and current and investment advisor Jim Ferrin. Jim, boy, we used to be at the Capitol at the same time. I was reporting and you representing part of Utah County.
Yes.
Good to have you here. You were opposed to this change, which essentially, what would you say it did? It lowered sales tax on retail, but then added a tax to a lot of services in the state.
It does do that. It's a rate reduction, and because it's a rate reduction, it can be billed as a tax cut.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, you take that reduced rate and then apply it to a broad array of economic activities that have never been taxed before, and it's a tax increase. And I know it's a tax increase because if it were not, it wouldn't solve the problem that they're concerned about.
But you know, the leaders up there, the governor and the folks who are really behind this say, hey, the world has changed. We're buying so many things online. The service sector is such a big part of the economy, much bigger than it used to be. We have to change the taxes. What do you say to that?
We've heard the argument that we have a shrinking sales tax base. That's basically the argument you're making. What would you conclude from that? You might think that means we have a shrinking sales tax. I never saw anybody ask any legislator to what degree have our sales taxes actually shrunk in the last several years. If they did, the answer is they haven't shrunk. In 2018, the general fund grew by 10%, well, 9.54%, but sales tax grew by over 10%. So far this year, we're 5 months into the 2019 fiscal year, sales taxes, the general fund revenues, have grown by 8.5%. So every year we've had growth.
Factors that are happening, though. For example, we're finally seeing some online retail coming online and getting sales taxes. Isn't that part of why we're seeing that growth in sales tax? And also the fact that we're seeing, oh man, you've got the numbers.
I've got the numbers.
Did you see that? He reached down. He's set. So
I have
trouble.
I have the most recent monthly state revenue snapshot that tells us that general fund revenues have been growing at 8.5% this year. And there's a statement. It says, overall, the strong performance is primarily due to a flourishing economy, though some revenue growth is attributable to increased collections of online sales tax.
So what you're saying is, I'm kind of right, but you're really right. I think there's a
the point
conclusion.
Is, we have a robust growing economy here in Utah, and that's creating robust growth in our general fund or our sales tax revenues. And I'm having a hard time finding any place. I printed out a few pages of the 250-page comprehensive annual financial report for the state of Utah. I read through the general fund section. I can find no mention of any emergency or any struggles. What I find is the general fund's growing at 9%, 10%, 8.5%.
Okay.
We're now to a point, though, where the legislators can't rob from the education Peter to pay the general fund Paul, and that's what they're worried about.
So we are out of time. I really appreciate you coming in and talking about this. An investment advisor, I'll bet you you thought you were done with all these dense policy documents here because of former state representative Jim Ferrin. Thank you so much for joining us. By the way, we did invite the governor and other legislative leaders to join us and speak on the other side of this issue. They were not available, but this is something that this conversation is going to continue. I know that as the years go on.
Thanks, Max.